speaker, I would like to answer two questions in this speech. Number one, which paradigm provides better personal religious experiences? Secondly, which side provides pernicious or beneficial and benevolent social implications? Let's remember the parameters set up by the Prime Minister. This debate is not just about personal catharsis. This debate is also about social implication, and that's the parameter the Prime Minister explicitly presented in this debate, to which criteria we have insufficient rebuttals or attention from the other side of that house, unfortunately, in this debate. But I would like to further extend that point later in my speech. Moving on to the third question is about the personal religious experiences. The main assessment from their side of the house is group is important. Collective experiences that maximizes the personal connection with God. And people are able to gain confidence. There are some members in the institution that you can rely on in the case of desperation. And these are the main assertion, which was not sufficiently substantiated, but I'm happy to engage with it. This is very illogical. Number one, the first logic explained by the leader of opposition is because the existence of God is vague, you can't see and you can't feel. That's why when you have allies, you have friends, that you're suddenly able to feel and see what the God is, right? If God, I don't believe when just because you have members in the community, you can suddenly gain the ability to feel and sensitize God existence of God. If God is so easily materialized, then an individual is also able to materialize a sense of God in the first place. The characterization of existence of God is very ambiguous under their characterization of existence of God. And we can have exactly the same mechanism in the individual pursuit. And it's far more likely that individuals are able to explore a plethora of different kinds of God, which is not allowed in under their model, when the one answer, one God exists in one doctrine, the Islam and Christianity and Buddha and so on. Secondly, group is good because we can have internal critique. They say individual is bad because when the person is criticizing each other or one another, people cannot gain confidence, right? We believe that our thought is subject to criticism. But critique is far more likely to be exacerbated and militant in the case of religion war. The reason why there are so many religious violence and war all across the world is because of this kind of critique about the orthodoxy, a very similitude of interpretation of doctrine. In case of Shia versus Sunni, that's a major problem in Middle East, like ISIS. All of you know that religion is source of many conflicts. The response from their side of the house is that there are many other elements which constitute the source of conflicts, such as race, maybe nationality. The problem is that existing religious conflicts and warfare incorporate all those other elements and even more aggrandize the size of warfare, and that's a problem. When we have a series of existing conflicts, and that conflicts and series incorporate all the other elements of conflicts, and that's how the war gets exacerbated and aggravated, and that's the problem. So your model is fueling or empowering the existing conflict, and that's why we'd like to condemn this side of the house. No, thank you. And finally, about the group psychology. The problem of group psychology is when the institution becomes oppressive and exploitative, there are certain members of the people who cannot access such group benefits. Maybe social minority, disenfranchised individuals, LGBT, those who want to access abortion or euthanasia or want to commit suicide, or even women in Islamic community. When they use called group, those groups necessarily justify themselves to oppress other members and suppress other members. Therefore, the kind of groups that they're talking about is privileged groups of people, already privileged members of society, are the ones who are able to join the group psychology. Therefore, their benefit is at least very applicable to small number of population in our society, and that's not necessarily the case for vast majority of weak people who really need salvation. Moving on to what we have brought to the table. On comparison to institutionalized oppressiveness, well, the reason why, we have given you three reasons why individual pursuit is better paradigm. The first logic is explained by Deputy Prime Minister is about subjectivity of value. That was explained in relation the answer to the point of information explained by Enomoto-san, right? That is to say, there is plethora of value judgment in a society, and we cannot know what form of value judgment best matches the individual perception, best matches the individual experiences. Because the reason why you want to worship something is because you have some experiences in your life. Maybe you have the tragedy, you experience something bad. Therefore, what forms and what removes your negative experiences is different from person to person. Because of the subjectivity of the value, it's much better when we democratically allow everybody to explore different multiple types of value judgment. Secondly, the orthodoxy, then autonomy. That is to say, it is hard for individual to opt out the institution, but on our side of the house, we allow the level of flexibility. The nature of institution is that people seek out orthodoxy and authenticity. That means there is one correct and the most accurate interpretation in the doctrine. The difference is when you pursue your own notion of a higher being, you have no incentive to hijack other people's perception or dictate the ways in which other individuals in society to construct their own perception of a higher being. And that is incentive or motive is uniquely different between our side and their side. Secondly, the doctrine itself is open to multiple interpretations. Therefore, an individual should be allowed to pursue to find the defects in doctrine. The only response from a deputy leader of opposition is that consistency is important, right? Because the group can make sure the consistency. That's how people gain, the confidence in itself. No, what determines the consistency in the first place? Like doctrine itself has internal contradiction in the first place. So you are the one who is able to determine what constitutes consistency of it. Go ahead.
Technically, they are able to have the autonomous decision to determine which kind of content to class. But how can you guarantee that this way of being in which they are absolutely is going to materialize the best?
Secondly, if you're talking about the uncertainty of materialization, that's far more likely to be aggravated and exacerbated when the authoritative people in the institutions try to impose and dominate their own justifiable perception of doctrines. Therefore, I think that uncertainty is very big. Secondly, the reason why we can remove the uncertainty is because you are able to opt out your current belief and try to explore some alternative belief if that matches your experience. Because as you live on, you may gain another experiences which fundamentally change their value perception. When that kind of event happens, we allow individual to re-examine your existing belief and improve or alter your perception on our side of the house. That flexibility to elasticity is unique in our individual pursuits. Finally, about the social implication that Deputy Prime Minister explained, brought a lot of responses. We have very few rebuttals from the other side of the house. The only response is that some religions are more inclusive, but what we are talking about is not an example. There is a propensity in institution that exacerbates the existing discrimination and oppression. Therefore, we don't believe they engage the logic. They just explain the counter-example. But what we would like to hear from their side of that is the counter-analysis why the propensity can be minimized, and that's what we are happy to propose.